Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
Hi.
Good
Hey, everybody.
afternoon.
Hey, everybody. Hello.
Lots of people.
Well,
Good group today.
so everyone is on mute now, and I've clicked the button that does not allow you to unmute yourselves, just because we have upwards to 100 people on this call at this point, which is amazing. And my internet is spotty because I'm at home, like most of you, and today is not a great day for our neighborhood, apparently. But I'm grateful, especially grateful that Suzi Byrd and Ginny Chilton Maxwell and Lindsay Smith are leading us today. And they will be leading us on the topic of virtual choir rehearsals. So I'm particularly grateful that each of them are leading, and they're coming to us, two from Texas and one from Virginia. And so with that, I'm going to let them take it away. I think they've got questions for you to ponder. If you have questions to ask, then there will be a chance for that too. So thanks. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Suzi, did you want to do an overview, or would you like me to just go ahead and start? Suzi, you might have to unmute yourself.
Okay, here we go. Well, good afternoon to everybody. I guess we determined that it's afternoon. It's so good to see all of you. This is so exciting. We wanted to share what God has been doing in our midst in regards to singing with one another. We have been all struggling with this idea that we can't gather and that we can't sing together. And that is what makes us alive. I can really say that it was like a death for a moment, not being able to sing with friends. And plus, to sing to God. And so now I wasn't able to do that anymore. And so I thought about what our options are to come together and still sing. And sing together. It doesn't mean that we all are going to be able to hear how we sing together, but I know God is able to hear us all sing together. And so my focus shifted from thinking about, how I perceive it, how I feel about it, to just really focusing on how God would perceive our song if our lone focus is on God, which it should have been all along, but we all know we also have this effect of we need this for our well-being to sing together. I can sing by myself all day long, but it was about singing together. So connecting people in song was what my whole purpose was of thinking of this virtual choir. And I realized very quickly, because I serve at a small church with a small choir, just about on a good day, 16 or so, I realized very quickly that I would not be able to do this by myself, because I knew that not everybody in the choir might be able to participate right away, and so I needed help. And my first call was to my friend and colleague, and actually predecessor at the church where I serve, Lindsay Smith, the Reverend Lindsay Smith, that is. And we kept thinking further, and we invited more colleagues into this project. So short story, or a long story short, we are now 9 churches that have come together to form this choir, virtual choir. And my initial thought was, this was mid-March, that we're not going to have music on Easter in the church together. And so my initial thought was like, what if we could come together and just rehearse one piece. And so I thought, like, well, what if we could make this happen? And so I shared that with Lindsay, and all these other directors came along. And then so we started our first rehearsal. It was kind of mid-March, I want to say, like the 19th or so. Anyway, long story short, we started rehearsing on Zoom. At that point, still together as a community of directors, 4 directors based out in a choir room, and 1 accompanist. And then when the shelter-in-place order came, we went to all Zoom. And so I'm just going to describe a little bit the that we went through. The first thing we did, we started picking what are we going to sing. And so for Easter, we had picked the Hallelujah chorus, but we thought, like, we can't just all sing the Hallelujah chorus and that's it. So we picked 3 other anthems, I think, that we could maybe use on the way or right after Easter or whatever. So we picked those, made sure that we had the appropriate volume in our library, because we wanted to make sure that we would be copyrighted properly, and that we would follow the copyright. So after that was determined, and the Hallelujah chorus obviously is public domain, then one of our directors pointed us towards a thing called Choraltrax.com. That is an individual who started helping choirs by recording each anthem, like a gazillion choral anthems, so Choraltrax.com. And he had the Hallelujah chorus in there, and then he put part dominant recordings in there. This is the same guy recording all 4 parts. That's what makes it a little bit weird, because he had to digitally alter the bass part because he couldn't sing it. He's a tenor, high tenor. But he sang all the women part in falsetto, and then the tenor, he's the tenor, and then he altered the bass digitally so that it would all come together. So sometimes it sounds a little wonker, but it would be good enough for our people to work with that. So we then propagated that to each of our choirs and invited them to these Zoom calls for rehearsal. And this, much like we're in right now, we're going to go through this minute. He's going to lead us in like a sample rehearsal of that. We then invited, we had the music. We create a Dropbox file or folder, actually, and each piece has a folder within that folder, and that has the music in it, so a copy of the music, and these choral part dominant recordings. And then we did rehearsals, like opportunity to create worship art. We are not really the focus on worship and singing, right? Our faces are not it. It's about God. So aside that some people were comfortable in doing video, we decided not to do video. We stayed with audio. Plus, it was a lot easier to begin with. So then we gave them these recordings. They recorded themselves listening to the track with headphones, and then recording themselves usually on a phone. And any smartphone will do. We figured out ways for iPhones. We figured out ways for Androids. So all of that worked just great. And then each singer sent in those files to their director, and the directors uploaded these files into the Dropbox folder that we had already created. Then two of our directors, one takes it, and that happens to be me, takes it down and layers each of those files. I download the accompaniment track first, and then I layer all of the choral tracks one at a time. So I have to listen to each one and just line them up visually, and then also via audio to each of to the accompaniment, so that they're all together. Then once they're lined up, once the beginning is lined up, they should be okay, unless they mess up in the middle somewhere. Sometimes that does happen. Then after I do that, I personally do that in a application called Garageband, which is owned by Apple, and so that's free. But there are other forms that's called Audacity that you can use, that's also free, that works for PCs. And after I layer everything and clean up the noise and everything, then the next person comes in and makes it pretty, balances everything out, and re-recording of that, and then sends that to all of the directors, and we stream that in the morning in worship. I will say that that's really the purpose, right, to have music and worship, but that has gone by the wayside, and we have found, I mean, we still do the recording, but that's no longer really our primary focus. Our focus is to come together in rehearsal now across Houston, and I think at this point I can safely say we're moving way beyond the borders even of Texas. We had now a church from Maryland join us, and we rehearse twice a week, Tuesdays at noon and Thursdays at 7 p.m. so that people, working or not, have opportunities to join whenever they can. And I record all of these Zoom rehearsals, and then edit that recording and put it up on YouTube. And then any singer who missed a recording, missed a rehearsal, can go on YouTube and listen to that and participate that way and learn the pieces that way. And that's kind of the overview of how we started doing this. Back to Ginny.
Hey, everybody. So I'm Ginny. I'm part of the Houston virtual choir. I just started doing Zoom choir myself because I missed my choir. I just do it with my 12 folks at my church because I missed them, and I wanted to start see if I could do something. So I'm just going to show you what I do. So, the first thing that I did was choose 12 anthems that we had in our library, and I snail mailed them to everyone in my choir. Once everyone had the music, then we would sign on to Zoom, and I would say, we're doing this one now, everybody get up this. Then when you are the host, you can mute everyone as you are muted right now. And then I share my screen and I play a recording of a good choir singing it, and we sing along with our physical music. So I'm just going to do that for you right now. I'm going to go down here to share screen. You don't have to do anything. You're just waiting. Share screen. Share computer sound is important because we are doing music here. Mute everyone. You are muted. Share. Okay, so you should, I know the connection has not been great for us this afternoon, but you should be looking at my oh so personal files right now. But I want to show you this piece of music. So normally I wouldn't show everybody a piece of music on the screen, but since you don't have physical music that I snail mailed you on this call right now, you can look at this piece of music. And so for a Zoom rehearsal, I would just say, hey, this piece is in 7/4 time. How we're going to count 7/4 time is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Before I start the recording, everybody, make sure you notice that in verse 1, there's a pickup with Father, Son, and Spirit. Verse 2, fourth system, His name is my adoption. Make sure you get that. See how I'm just pointing out things that people might miss. And the refrain is in 4/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I'm going to play the music. You guys are all muted, so you were free to sing along as loudly as you would like at home. Sing along with, this is actually a recording of me doing it, but of course, if you're doing a big piece of choral music, you can purchase your own, the Cambridge Singers singing whatever you want. A recording of Water Life, actually. Does anybody know this piece? It's kind of fun, but this is going to be me singing it. All right, everybody, sing along. Turn up the sound if you need to. So I hope the connection was good enough for you to be able to hear that. If you had 100 participants in your own choir, the connection would probably be much smoother. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to Suzi and Lindsay.
So I'll just lead you through a little bit of what we do in our rehearsals. Much like Ginny, we mail out or delivered music beforehand to most of our folks, and we just leave that up to each choir director. The great thing about working as a team is that we don't have to do everything alone. And so we can turn to each other to help lead in prayer, to lead in warm-ups. Often I'm the one that we kind of run our rehearsals like sectionals, really. So I'll teach the sopranos, Suzi will teach the altos. We have another wonderful many other wonderful directors who will lead the tenors and the basses. I don't know why we have more men than women, but we sure do. So Suzi and I are the alto and soprano always. So today, well, when we normally start, we open and then we'll warm up our voices a bit. I'm going to assume that our voices are warm. We also talk about posture. You know, while we're sitting down, it's really to remind our singers to sit up nice and tall. Make sure you're not slouched. I feel like I'm slouching over a computer all the time these days. So one of the important things when you're leading on Zoom is to make sure that you have original sound turned on, which is a feature. If you go next to the microphone, there's a little My Audio, and then you have to find this original sound, which will help your piano actually sound like a piano instead of very tinny and it doesn't resonate. It just hears, it's not good. So make sure you have your original sound turned on if you're leading from the keyboard, which we do quite a bit. But when we're running the pieces, we use these Choraltrax. So that's what you'll be hearing. I'm going to share my screen and the sound, the computer sound, that's really important too. The piece that we're going to sing today is Miller's I Believe. So this starts with a solo, but we encouraged all of our singers to go ahead and record themselves.
I believe in love. I believe even when I don't feel it. And that's really it. And that you repeat all the way through until the end. Did you want to do the tenor or do you want me to do the bass while I'm on it?
Oh, why don't you go ahead and do the bass while we're on
basses are actually very similar to the altos. I believe in love. I believe in love, even when I don't feel it. And then the sopranos and tenors come back in together, and we come in with the altos together. That's really all there is to that piece, at least for the basses.
So let me run through that tenor part. This is at the top of page, or the bottom of the 5th page. Tenors, you come in with the sopranos. Here we go. This is your pitch. I believe in love. I believe in love. Oops, sorry. Even when I don't feel it. It is really hard to scroll and play the piano at the same time. Probably not for the organ, they're going to be great at this. Since the soprano descant happens at the top of page 7, which sounds like this. I believe in love. I We're going to run the whole thing. Make sure you pay attention to your dynamic markings. And we'll sing it through once, and then I'll show you what our final product looks like. Just one moment. Here we go.
I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun. Even when it's not shining.
this really is just like one of our rehearsals because one of my kids just walked in. That happens often. So let me show you the video that came from this. Can you tell me, can you see this? Can you see it, Susie? Can you see it? No. Let me try again. Sometimes when you're sharing your screen and they won't see what you think they're seeing, what you see, you have to stop your share and share again on the, you may already know all of these things. Let's see. Oh no, I think I just closed it. Okay, just 1 second. Okay. Here we go. Show computer sound. Okay, got to make sure all the boxes are checked. Can you see it now?
Yes, Lindsay, I can see it now.
Great, thank you.
I believe in the song. I believe in the song, even when it's not by me. I believe in the song.
So you can hear that we included some of the children of our congregations singing some of those solos. And I'll turn it over to Susie so she can tell you a little bit more about the technical side of compiling those things. And then we are open to questions from you all about our processes and whatever you want to know. Susie?
Yeah, I kind of addressed that already a little bit. So I'm kind of curious what questions you have. I see that somebody was asking if we're doing any pitch correct. We do not do that. I mean, I have, like for the Hallelujah chorus, we had over almost 80 singers participate. You know, I will say that Matt Robinson, who is the other person who does the audio and editing. So I am what he calls his sous chef. and I do all the layering. I'm prepping the kitchen, so to speak. I'm doing all the layering and make sure everything's lined up, and I will cut out like noise in between, like when you're not singing, like in all the rests, right? So people are still breathing, and then they start working with their music, and you can hear all of that, the dogs barking in the background or whatever. So I
Children.
cut. So I cut all of that out already, and then when I'm done with my work, I give that whole project. In my case, I work with Garageband, as I said, and basically all it does, it layers things, and I'm gonna show you that in a second. How I do that, how I do the layering, and or how that what that looks like on the screen. But I was basically, and then I hand it off, and the next person, Matt, who's also one of our directors, he just happens to be also an audio engineering genius, and he takes then all of the soprano voices and he mixes them together to one track so that it becomes one nice solid unit that's very balanced in itself. He does the same for all the altos, all the tenors, all the basses. And then he takes those 4 tracks and balances them in within. And so that's how this nice balanced choral sound that we usually would get by saying, hey, altos, you're too loud, or tenors, you're too loud, or whatever. I can't hear enough of this or that. Usually in rehearsal we would do that. So now we do that in the audio engineering part. But that's basically how it works. And so I want to answer your questions. In the meantime, I'll show you that. I think you can put the questions in the chat. Is that what we decided?
Yes, Susie, there was just a question. For a 3-minute piece, how many hours does it typically take for both of the editors to do all this layering and mixing for a 3-minute piece?
So the laborious part is on my end, because it's like do one track, do the next track, and so on. It takes me on this piece, it took me about 5 to 6 hours to do that part. And then Matt, it takes him about an hour, usually no more than an hour then, to do what he does.
And we usually have 40 to 60 voices, right?
Yes.
Kind of depends from piece to piece.
Yes.
It does feel quite exposing for our singers when they record. I have a lot of singers that feel anxious about it. They don't like hearing themselves sing all by themselves, because when we ask them to record, that's all they hear. It's just their voice when they send it in, and so it's not perfect. And I remind them that, if it was a live performance, there would probably be a few mistakes, and that's okay. We need to give ourselves some grace and be proud of yourself that you're actually having the courage to do this.
Mm-hmm.
There's more questions there, Susie and Lindsay.
It says, let's see, based on my experience, the more participants, the longer it takes to mix. Exactly. An experienced mixer who doesn't want it to be perfect could mix it quickly within an hour, and an experienced one maybe from 10 to 20 hours. That's absolutely true. Susie said the more she gets familiar with it, the faster it goes.
It does go faster. So for example, I believe was actually my first time mixing. That was our second piece recorded. I did not mix the Hallelujah chorus, and I was just grateful when Matt came along and said, well, if you want to, I could do the mixing. And I'm like, yes, go for it. But but we ended up he was so busy, and to do this every week, we decided that we're going to share it. And I'm going to quickly share my screen so you can see what that looks like in GarageBand. Hang on. All right, here we go. And this is actually the I Believe. So you see, I have a template that I was able to download. It was on the internet. somebody had already made a template for virtual choir, so all these parts were already set up. Each vocal track was set up, so I didn't have to EQ anything. It was already ready to go. That was very helpful. So you can, let me see if I can go to the beginning. So here you see the accompaniment track, and there's long nothing, right? And here is the child solo as it comes in. And you're thinking like, why did I leave so much room? Well, that actually, even though it doesn't show up here, she's actually already singing there. I had to, as you can see, I had to turn her volume up all the way so that we could actually hear her, because it was very soft. It was a 9-year-old that recorded that, so that was extra special. So I'll play just for a little bit. You should let me know if you can hear this. No. Okay.
No.
Hang on. I just need to change the preferences. Okay, yeah, that's why. Okay. Now you should be able to hear it. So as we go through, I want you to look at that. So there's Lindsay, all the sopranos. Sometimes I have to cut out things because they weren't in tune, or here come the altos. Now come the tenors. So that goes all the way down here. So see here, I had to cut out a piece. There was noise. All right. You get the idea. So that's what that looks like. And so the part that's difficult is to line up each track. So I can move the track back and forth, and according to what appears the accompaniment track. So then I line that up with the accompaniment track so that they are perfectly in time with one another. And I do that then with the entire choir, and each part I have to make sure that they line up. This is just about when it comes in. Sometimes you can do it visually, but it doesn't always show up so nicely, you know. So you see it here pretty nicely, and then there are others that are really, really soft, and they don't show that part. So I hope that helped a little bit in understanding this.
Oops. I see a question from Joyanne. She was asking about the Zoom experience and how spotty the internet connection can be, as we have so noticed during this presentation. So yes, how she says, I know we can imagine the tones continue. Oh, this was the original sound thing that I was talking about. She was saying, you know, there's often distortion, or tones are suppressed or eliminated altogether. If you turn on original sound, that helps with that. That helps a lot, especially with the piano. And again, that I've tried to share my screen while showing this before, but if you go next to your microphone, there's a little arrow, and then you go to audio settings, and then you go to advanced, and up at the top it says enable original sound. And that's the button that you click to make that happen, so that you don't have as much of that elimination of lingering tones that you want from a piano. This is obviously not perfect. None of us, it's been a joy and a blessing to be able to continue to make music together virtually. But, you know, this is not ideal. And certainly Zoom is not set up for this kind of thing. I did say, I see that somebody said something about another app. Oh, where did it go?
Acapella app.
The acapella app. I haven't used that. Have you experimented with that, Ginny?
I heard that, like I have some choral conducting colleagues who said they used that. I think that in the end, they're all very similar. You have to learn them. You have to learn how they work. And each of them works a little different. And they have different names for everything, of course. Why make it easy on the user? So you have to just experience that. I will say, having, you know, at least 4 to 5 directors on every Zoom call for us has been a blessing. So like sometimes when the internet for one is spotty, the others take over. We'll say, okay, today this is not working from my location. Lindsay, can you do this? Yes, absolutely. Or, you know, and so we throw the ball literally back and forth to each other in every rehearsal. And what I will say, the blessing has been for me personally, to be able to work with my colleagues. You know, I never, other than in seminary, and I see Dr. Hahn down there, other than in seminary, I never would have been able to work with Lindsay or Bodie Gilbert or DeAndre Johnson or, you know, all these people I've only seen work in seminary, but not here in what they do. And so now we're all working together, and our singers say, well, we don't even know what that's going to be like to go back to one choir with just one director. How boring. So, you know, we might have created something that that will last way beyond this pandemic.
Someone said the recording had a lot of reverb. Was that to soften when the singers weren't together? That effect was added by Matt in the final production piece of it, and it just helps it sound like you're in a real room. And like you're all actually together. And I think it does help soften some of those entrances. And we've said strange things to our choir, you know, maybe don't put on as much tea as you normally would, because we get ta-ta-ta-ta-ta and sa-sa-sa-sa-sa, you know? So it's definitely different.
And it's a work in progress. We have been talking about, like we watched the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. They started doing, obviously, virtual choir as well. And they did this perfect thing where they had conductor, and then they had on the bottom of the screen, they had scrolling the music for each part. And then there was some other thing also on the screen. I mean, it was like the perfect thing, obviously not that capable at this point anyway, but little steps, you know. But I do think making a conducting video for each part, it would be very helpful in the recording process, because they're getting the endings together. They're getting much better at it, but that's been taken 4 to 5 recordings before it gets quicker and better.
And because of the lag in Zoom, it's really hard to be able to conduct, because my video may not be synced up with the music that's playing from my own computer. So when your internet connection is good, it might be in time, but it might not be. So a lot of what we've done feels like vocal coaching to me more than conducting.
I see that a question about if it was possible to have all the sopranos to hear each other. So on Zoom, that is not possible at this time. maybe they're going to come up with some solution, but because we're all on different networks where there is a delay, and the delay can't be overcome, at least not at this point. So we'll just have to, and this is, but I will say something that occurred to me a couple of weeks ago. It empowers our singers to become better teachers for themselves. Because now there's nobody else listening to them. They have to learn themselves, like, where do I really put the T? Now that nobody's counting for me, or how do I sing this? They have to listen to themselves and correct themselves, become teachers. And it's really an empowering tool. And I can see the result of that in the recordings, which the quality is getting better and better with every piece that we do. I'm reading questions.
There's a question from Noel. How many vocal tracks can GarageBand handle before they start to cancel each other out and begin to sound like fewer voices? I don't know what that means. Suzi and Lindsay. It's in the chat there.
I do not know that.
So I think, Noel, you might be describing what's called phasing issues. And that gets into some pretty complicated recording, audio mixing complications. That's where sound waves actually start canceling each other out because of where the microphones are placed. I haven't experienced that being a problem with recordings that are sent in from completely different sound sources and individual voices. But if that is happening, you can isolate it by looking at phase issues. But once again, that's pretty advanced mixing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I did see a recommendation from Benjamin. He said, I recommend using a metronome or drum track when recording as well. It helps synchronize audio, even if a cappella. So that would be a click track is what we would call it. And we've done a little bit of that with a piece that we had. It began with an a cappella section. So we had some clicks leading up to that so that the singers would know when to come in. But mostly we have not used a click track, though we have talked about it quite a bit. I do think that does help quite a lot. And also having the video of a conductor if you're able to do that. Some people are saying a cappella is best for small groups. Maybe its capacity is 9 or 12. So that's helpful to know.
I'm not really sure what that, is there a way to show all the people on the video track simultaneously? Did you already answer that?
That question was from Connie. I guess she wants everyone's faces on the video while they're singing, maybe? I asked her for clarification.
Yes, you can do that. That's a whole separate, video editing is a whole separate thing. So you would first do all the audio editing and make a nice stereo track for that. And you will do the video separately, even though they're all singing. And so you line them all up and line that up with that one audio track. You take the single audio track from each voice away. What do you call that? Not join, but the opposite of joining. Separating. You separate the audio track from the video track, which you can do in any of those video editing softwares. And then you just add these in as they go. And there are templates. It's called picture-in-picture, I think. I've just kind of looked at that. I haven't really done much with the video editing yet.
There's a great question here from Amanda Powell. There's a lot of questions about technical process, but is there a time when you really felt the spirit? Like, like we do when we're actually together worshiping. Does this replace some of that in some way? In what ways have you felt God moving through this process?
Yes, totally. I mean, every rehearsal is like that. We now know everybody on the screen, and even though they come from all across the nation at this point, it's so cool to have these, these are now my community, my singing community, and it is just amazing. It might not be that I have that while singing and hearing everybody, but the spirit is definitely in these rehearsals. Oh my gosh, it's really a work of beauty, and then it comes through in the recordings in the end. But I really feel like that these rehearsals are the life-giving part of everything.
Yeah, I would agree with that too, Susie. I'm not producing recordings with my little choir, but it's funny how singing together, not together, God, it does show up in some very unexpected way.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a blessing.
We're coming to an end, I think. So I just was going to close us with a couple of words. They came to me. I remember when we were in Holy Week. That's a month ago. It seems like an eternity. Or did it even happen? And I remember thinking about as we were walking towards Easter, and when on Easter Sunday morning, I was thinking, are we really in a resurrection time, or are we trying so desperately to resuscitate that what just had died? And I felt as I was, listening and working with this choir and my colleagues, and I was thinking, God is doing an amazing thing in this pandemic. And why not let God do that? What God does so well, create order in the chaos. When as I say, the Spirit hovered over the water, or I'd like to say, as God's song was hovering over the water, and then God created order. So as we continue to sing, even in this odd circumstance, and discover new ways of coming together and having community, aren't we also continuing to create order in this chaos that we live in right now? And so we have to make a choice. Are we gonna sit in the valley and not gonna get up? Or are we gonna walk through this valley with God at our side, which I know God is at our side at this point, and at every point, all the points? Or are we just gonna sit down and wallow? We have to grieve, that's for sure. But we also have to keep our eye on that what God is creating new in the midst of this.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Lindsay, Ginny. So if you want to show your appreciation, the best way to do that while you're on mute is American Sign Language clapping.